Hi, Poindexter here. So today I wanted to share with you one of my favorite hobbies. And it's actually kind of a passion of mine. And we can go into like all different directions with this conversation. But before we do, I want to tell you I am wearing my Native American hat. So I am registered Native American. I belong to a tribe in Northern California. I also have a BIA card, which is the Bureau of Indian Affairs card. So for some people are like, "Are you really Native American? Are you? Are you?" I am. And in California, we call them rancherias that you belong to and not reservations. I'm not exactly sure why. I probably should look it up. But all I know is that in California, we belong to rancherias. And my rancheria does have a casino, and no, I don't make any money off of that. So my father had two daughters, me and my sister, and we grew up with this love of being outdoors, right? And hunting and fishing, and he was this total big sportsman. And what I need to do is I need to show you the back of his skipjack and what he actually named his skipjack because I'm telling you, he was like always fishing and always hunting. And Grandma Poindexter almost divorced him because he was gone like all the time, like always doing something, right? Stripper fishing, like salmon fishing, you name it, that man did like everything. And he knew how to like catch and, you know, do everything basically. He's my hero. That's what we'll say. But anyways, I had the privilege of learning how to hunt with my dad, and it was great. I grew up as a very small little girl right here, hunting with him, and so it was great. I mean, experience because I was with my father every weekend from beginning of September, sometimes even from August into middle of November, and I'm like every weekend. Like he would get me up early in the mornings, and we would go hunting like all day Saturday, all day Sunday. And it was just from the time I was little to the time, well, until yeah, pretty much passed away. And we would hunt all the time. And it was great. I mean, I got to spend so much great quality time with my father. Just even like I remember being little and just sitting in the truck being like, oh my God, this is like so boring. Like when is this gonna be over with? Because all I want to do is go home and watch, He-Man and She-Ra like cartoons and or whatever cartoons were playing at the time. But as a little kid, you're always just like, oh my God, this is kind of like boring when you're not really seeing any animals and you're just sitting there. But then as I got older, I learned how to really appreciate, the outdoors. And the one thing I will say about deer hunters is that we are the biggest conservationists. So, in another YouTube episode, I will talk about the time I wanted to be a wildlife biologist. And I actually did a ton of volunteer work at the Fish and Game in their wildlife investigations lab. So learned a ton about like the different types of animals, wildlife that we have in California, how to capture, release them. And then I also learned about like how important it was for the Fish and Game to be constantly monitoring these herds. So one thing you need to understand is that in California, and I'm sure this is true for every single like Department of Fish and Game, is that they're constantly monitoring the herds, right? And they only allow hunters to hunt. The number of tags they give out depends on the herd size. And what they want to do is that basically they are kind of thinning the herd out in a way that they want to make sure that the herd stays healthy. Because with like any population, you get an overgrowth. It's not healthy. You're going to get diseases and other types of things that could happen to them. So that was a really cool experience. I got to experience when I was younger too, when I thought I wanted to be a wildlife biologist, and I will actually share some pictures on another YouTube video about that because I have videos of being like with a mountain lion. And then just all sorts of, it was just a really fun experience. And I don't think I've ever shared that with my fans before. But anyways, another thing I want to talk about with hunting is that um, with hunting, we did use every single part of the animal. So, also being a Native American, we would take the hides, and I did learn from one of my uncles like how to tan the hides, and then you can turn them into Native American drums. So I wish I still had the drum that I made years ago, but I think when I moved at some point somewhere along the lines in my 20s, it got lost, and it's really sad because I actually hand painted the Indian drum too, so that was really cool. But anyways, but deer meat's really good. And my family, I try to, like, hey, we're gonna mix a little deer meat in there with, some regular beef and see what happens. But anyways, this is my dad, and this is me as a little tiny girl. I probably am. I wanted to say like maybe, oh, I don't even know, like 3 or 4 here, but yeah, this is what I did. I grew up basically, always with my dad, like deer hunting. It has become this huge, like, um, sport in general. And you're seeing like all these different hunting shows, and you're seeing all these like conventions, like hunting conventions. And I love it. I love to see like all these new women out there hunting, and all these like kids out there and men out there. Although I will tell you, I have never paid for a hunt. I don't know. I just kind of I find that a little bit weird when I think you need to actually work for it. So all the deer I have ever like killed, it's all been on my own. It wasn't with some guide. I've never had a guide. I'm not against that, but I'm just saying like I've never had to like have a guide. And also when I see all these like people on television or people in the media or on social media, they're like, "Oh, I'm a hunter. I'm a hunter." Like, really? Were you like a little kid growing up hunting? I'm just curious. Or was it just you're saying that now because you think it's really cool? All right. So here are some of the pictures when I was actually old enough to hunt. So in California, you have to be 12. So funny story is that before I turned 12, my dad took me down to get my hunting license. So in California, it used to be you had to sit through so many different hours in a classroom, right? And then you had to take a test. And back in the day, it was all Scantron because, this is back like in the 80s. Yes, because I am 47. And my dad, it's really cute. He would actually sit there and like he'd be highlighting the book as like the instructor's talking, right? And then on the way home, he'd be like quizzing me, like, okay, now what do you do when you come to a fence? What do you do with your rifle? What are you gonna do with it? How do you, are you gonna go under the fence? Are you gonna go over the fence? How, like, what are you gonna do? I mean, constantly was like just, you know, quizzing me because he was really proud that his daughter was gonna go out there and hunt with him. And, it's actually looking back at it now, I'm like, it's kind of cool because there was never, not a lot of girls that would actually hunt at that time. So, but anyways, I wanted to share these pictures with you guys. This picture right down here is my first deer ever. So here I am, 12 years old, with my first little buck. He's super cute, right? Look at that little bucky. And honestly, I don't even know how old I am in some of these pictures. It's been so long. I know this deer right up here on the right hand corner, that's about 16, 15, 16, because I had my hair like in these crazy, scrunchies were in then, and now they're back in. They're back in. So I've been around to see scrunchies go in and out of style. So it's kind of aging myself. So I had to be about 15, 16. So these I have to be like in my early teens in these pictures here. And then there's another one here where I want to say, I mean, look at that baby face, right? I mean, I've always had that round Native American face. And yeah, and in fact, this is interesting. This is another fun tidbit is that I grew up hunting. So in California, we have Columbian blacktail deer, which is what this guy is here, what this guy is here. This guy's a Columbian blacktail guy here. Um, he's a blacktail. I want to say he is too. Um, then we also have what we call mule deer. So we have these mule deer, which are up in more of the Great Basin, up in the Sierras. But it's kind of, I don't even know where they would actually start, but more in the Sierras on the western side, you're going to see Columbian blacktail. And then once you get up higher, and then more over towards going east, you're going to see more of your mule deer. So I prefer to hunt mule deer over blacktail, and I'll tell you why. Because I grew up, if you can see right here, it's off of 395. It's a little town. I can't tell you where because I don't want people going up there and hunting because I'm having a really hard time getting my own tags up there now because it's just there's so many different like people that are trying to get tags. It's insane. So back in the 80s, 90s, you could get tags like almost every year up in these X zones. Now it's really hard, but it is an X zone. So if you're familiar with hunting in California, it's an X zone. Amazing. I love like being out in the sagebrush, high desert, and up there, so up there when you hunt, or what I learned how to hunt, it was actually tracking deer. So you actually, look for fresh tracks. So you go out and find a fresh track, and then you'll get out like, and you'll walk a little bit to see like, well, how fresh is this? And you can look at some of the sagebrush or some of the buckbrush, and you can see like, sometimes you can see where they've actually bedded down. Sometimes you can see that when they've gone to the bathroom, and you can see like, oh, okay, that's actually pretty fresh. And if you can get a fresh track, And sometimes if it's like a single track, you're like, and it's good size and you can see those dew claws on the back, you're like, nice, nice. I think I got a nice buck here, you know? So definitely, that's how I grew up hunting. It wasn't like I'm in a tree stand waiting for a deer to come out. It wasn't like there was no bait. You can't bait in California. So there was no like, there's nothing like that that happens in California when you hunt. It's more of you have to actually, either hike up in the hills and like use a spotting scope, see if you can find something, or maybe hike around up there, which to me, I'm like, that's a lot of work. And then you got to carry the deer out. And I'm little, I'm like 5'4". I'm like, how am I going to carry that deer out? Luckily, I always have like some type of men with me that can do it. Either now that my dad's gone, I have my monsters, or I have my cousins and uncles who've taken my dad's place since he's passed away. But anyways, so you find these fresh tracks, right? And like you find them, and then you have one person that's actually tracking, and then you have the person back behind you, because you have to, like, you can't look down and look up at the same time, because a lot of times you'll sneak up on a deer, or maybe, depending on how the wind is, or you'll see them and they're so like it's usually pretty close because the sagebrush is really high, and sometimes the brush is higher than you, and sometimes all you see is like these little heads bouncing, right? So it's a fun experience. And when I was younger, like I said, I would get so bored. And when I grew up hunting up there, there was no cell phones, there's no like satellite TV. It was like, TV. Our hunting cabin was like, we had old school antenna that only got like one station. And it was always like always staticky, never was really good. We had, regular phone on the wall if you had to make a phone call. Um, if I had to like call one of my boyfriends, I'd have to go outside and close the door because there was like no privacy in the hunting cabin, besides like in the bathroom. But yeah, it was just a fun experience of like, well, actually going back when I was little, I was just like, this is so boring. There's like nothing to do, and we're driving around like looking for tracks, or we're driving up in the hills, and we're like having to walk, and it wasn't until as I got older that I'm like, oh, this is actually a lot of fun. And it wasn't until I probably was like around 12, 13 where I'm like, this is actually a lot of fun. This is fun in the sense of like you're outdoors, right? And it's like you're learning how to be one with nature. You're learning to see like how is it that these deer are adapting to this environment, right? Because if you know anything about hunting, it's like deer are constantly moving, right? So they do travel depending on the season. There is a site that I follow. It's this Wyoming Mule, I think it's Wyoming Mule Deer Foundation. I could be wrong on that and I have to check it out. But they actually have on Instagram, if you follow them, I think that's the site. I'll have to find it and link it onto the bottom of this video. But it will show you like the migration of these deer that they actually tag, and they travel like hundreds of miles, right? From their summer home all the way down to the winter home, because summertime they're usually a little higher, and then wintertime they usually come down lower. So it's just all things like that, right? It's like you learn like yeah, there are what's kind of like there are migration paths. You're always looking for like, what are they eating? Where's the closest water source at too? Because deer will travel like they'll travel, get some water, and maybe not get water for a couple days. So it's constantly like you might see one day down at the creek, and then you might not even see, any other animals down there for like days. Also, the time of the year that you actually, get the animal, you have a tag for it. So beginning of the season, like in October, they're not really going through rut yet, but as it gets later in the season and you have a deer that goes through a rut, their necks get really like enlarged and engorged, and their hormones are going crazy through their system. And if you are a hunter, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And you see them out there, like those bucks get so crazy, like chasing after those does. It's fun to watch. And they get a little more stupider too. So it's always good to have like that late hunt, But because they're just like, they're not so much on guard, because they're like, I'm gonna chase that girl, I'm gonna chase that doe. Anyways, but those type of like those deer that are in rut, it's a much more gamier taste to the meat because there's more hormones that are running through it. So yeah. Anyways, I could go on and on about like hunting, my love for it, what it meant to me as like somebody who grew up doing it with my father. I talk too much about it, I might start crying. So we don't want that to happen because I do miss him. Like this was our thing that we had together. So, anyways, I'm gonna stop. We're gonna maybe put the brakes on it right now so I don't have to start crying. But if you guys like videos like this, let me know because I can talk for days about like hunting and different high end experiences. Um, things that my dad yelling at me because I missed a buck. How I missed the big buck and I shot a different buck instead, and how I'm like crying all the way back to the truck because he's yelling at me. I mean, and then I'm just like, I'm a girl, I'm not a boy. Why are you yelling at me? I'm like, I thought I did a good job. So I mean, just things like that, right? Where trips to Nevada that I've taken with him. How I wasn't allowed to go like to some out of state hunts because it's a boys trip and I'm a girl and I wasn't allowed to go when I was little, which is fine. And we can talk about the fish and game. Like I've told you, like I have a lot of stories and I can show you guys pictures of being with mountain lions and how I had to have a rabies vaccination to actually do volunteer work at the fishing game because you can't be around wildlife because you might be exposed to rabies. So yeah, isn't that funny? All right, that is it for today. I kind of rattled on a little bit. So, all right, so if you like this, let me know and click like, and then let me leave some comments of, yeah, it says cool. No, we don't care about like how you grew up Poindexter because we just don't really care. I mean, that's cool too. I mean, um, everyone has a story. So, anyways, thank you, and I will talk to you later. Bye.